Welcome, everyone, to Elevate with V. So excited to be here with everyone. So, this podcast was inspired by my own journey and as a way to express gratitude to those beautiful people that have helped me navigate during some of my most challenging times. And I would love to share who they are and their amazing gifts with all of you. So, I can't wait to introduce my guest today, Kristina. Hello, hello.
Hi.
So, I would love to share a little bit about Kristina. She is an intuitive empowerment coach and healer who will guide you to be confident in yourself, your truth, and intuitive inner knowing. She helps you see and heal core trauma and wounding and guide you into the energy of manifesting your highest dreams and live your full potential and your soul purpose. Welcome, Kristina.
Thank
Yay.
you. I'm so excited to be here and such an honor
Oh my
working
goodness.
with you, Vinita, in this way. Yes,
Thank
awesome.
you. So I want to share with everyone a little bit of my connection with Kristina. So I found her on Facebook on a live about 2 years ago. And I was so drawn to her warmth, her openness, and her style of readings. And since then, I've enjoyed countless lives done and taken so many of her amazing workshops. And what I love, Kristina, is that you are just someone who's so committed to always investing in your own expansion and growth. You stand fully in your power. You are so authentic in sharing your personal experiences. And I've seen you blossom into such a boss. Like I'm getting goosebumps as I'm saying that. You're so incredibly gifted, like multi-talented. So what she didn't mention in her bio is that she actually has another creative business. And she also has an incredible singing voice. And you're so genuine and passionate about helping people to live up to their highest potential. So I just wanted to share that. That's kind of what my experience has been of you. So welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, and you've been there. You came in at a time in my group and in my work that I've completely changed my life the last 2 years
Yes,
because as you said, I walk my talk, right?
yes,
And I realized that okay, I want everything to be 200% in my life. So you've seen that transformation too.
yes,
So which
yes.
which I know very well, and
It's
it's
so
a big shift.
amazing. It's so
Yeah.
amazing. And, as you know, this show is really highlighting healing journeys and
Yes.
how each one of us has navigated to what we call storms to get to some of our silver linings. So I want to kind of go back with you in terms of, you know, when you felt that you were going to be starting your healing journey, like what led up to that? If you want to share a little bit with all of us.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so my I kind of see it as I have had two major events in my life that has led to the intensity of my healing journey. And the first started in 2004. I had that started two very, very intense years for me,
Mhm.
where my family, my grandma and my mom and my sister got sick and they passed within 2 years. And there was so much else. My boyfriend at the time, 5 years, broke up with me. We moved my mom's house of 30 years. Everything happened. And plus that I did my education or tried to, my university degree in health education, all of that. So that sparked my journey. And as the universe always worked or works, I had just started before it happened, like that spring in 2004. I started in holistic education. So I studied Chinese medicine and massage, and that's when I started meditate on a daily basis, just a few months before all this intensity happened, right? So the universe like prepared me. So, and then during those 2 years, I also met my very best friend at university that I started that fall, and we did meditation courses together. I lived in Sweden. I'm born and raised in Sweden, by the way.
Okay.
So I was in Sweden at the time. It was my early 20s, and so we did meditation courses together. Especially there was one man that we went to. He usually had like long weekend courses, and
Mhm.
that was just meditated to music. So it was free meditation, about an hour, um, 4 times a day, and we were in a really like smaller groups and staying together for the weekend. So very spontaneous meditations, and then I did it by myself too every evening. And what really made me do it was coping to start with. Just like, not just to start with, was just like the universe is like, hey, this world is here for you. But then as I went into that intensity that summer when everything happened, it was coping, right? So coping with and understanding, why is this happening? So spontaneously, I went into past life meditations between me and my family members, and just to see everything. And at the same time, I found these books it's channeled animal wisdom and plant wisdom, and I still have them. They're over there, but they're like bruised and battered because it's been so many years. So and it's just channeled from a Swedish shaman, these animals. So that's how I started my intuitive journey. At the same time, everything was just, awakening my spiritual side and my intuition, all of it. Because then I started, like, as soon as I had a question, even if I would just walk to the tram or whatever to get to school or whatever, it was like I had a question and an animal would pop in, and then I would have to look it up in the book. And it was just, it was so intense. And then I did a meditation every evening, like a 15-minute meditation by this woman, guided meditation, and she would have animals come in. So then I would sit like an hour after the meditation to see what I experienced in the meditation and what did the animal actually need or mean. So that's how I started. It started with coping, but also like the peace that it gave me.
Yeah.
And during those 2 years, I learned, because how the meditation helped me so much, how the insight helped me so much, and then spending so much time with my best friend too, and we would just, channel for each other, do cards for each other, all of that. We just went all in together, and it was just magical. So it was coping, but then it would just be like I just found this amazing side that we all have, obviously. So it was also really empowering. And during that time, I learned to set my boundaries too, and realize
Mm.
that, oh, this is my boundary. I can't exhaust myself. If I'm going to come out of this alive, them going through chemo and all of it, and trying to study all of it at the same time. And my nephew was just a couple years old at the time too. So just trying to, if I'm going to come out of this alive, it wasn't just like coping in the moment. It was also like, okay, what do I need to do? And meditation helped me with this. What do I need to do? What boundaries do I need? So that I come out not necessarily thriving, but more than just making it, right? So meditation just helped me with that so much, in processing and setting boundaries and filling myself up during those years. So that, I know it's kind of intense story, but that's how my spiritual journey started. And I grew up, my mom was spiritual in the sense of,
Okay.
she always kind of followed, especially indigenous people, and I, read some books, and we kind of
Mm.
had that. It wasn't that we didn't have it, but in terms of meditating and really going in that way, that's when I started that. But I kind of always had it with me growing up, and me, my mom and my sisters were all like in social working or working with children. So I always grew up like, just awareness and emotional intelligence was always there. Like, why do people react the way they do? There's always something different than just like not being mean. And growing up, it was like something happened with my friends. It's like, well, he might have done something or she might have done something mean, but why? Why do people react the way they do? So I always had that growing up, and I realized that so much today. That and me and my sister talks about this still. Like, we got so much just growing up in that, from our mom, and with each other too. But it wasn't so much in a spiritual sense, but awareness sense, which is a good thing too.
Wow. Yes, I know that you have such a powerful like story of like just so much happening all at once, It was sort of like it was just like a ton of bricks like just on top of
Yeah,
you all at once, and then to have to navigate all of that, I mean, it's just so many challenges all at once. And I think, what I'm hearing, and number one, which you were saying also, is like meditation was sort of like just life altering for you. I mean, that shifted so much for you. And, I'm just thinking of people who are going to be listening to this, keeping in mind a lot of people might be in the beginning part of their journeys. They might be kind of, because I'm looking back where I was, 2 years ago when I started my journey. And if someone said to me, "Oh, yes, meditate," I'm like, "Are you crazy? Like, I have like the attention span of a flea. I can't, I don't know how to meditate. But it was that sort of like just starting just at the smallest level, just to kind of build into that. And I think not too long after that, I actually connected with you. And I still remember that first meditation that you took me through. And to this day, I still use it. And I just love that meditation. So I can't wait for when we are able to share all your bio and links and all of those things. People will be able to access that if they're like so intimidated by like, oh my God, I don't know where to start. Maybe we can direct them to even that one to say, hey, just something to start with. And it's something that you build. It's a practice that you build. It's not just going to happen in like one day. And but it's there. It's such a great tool. And we'll kind of jump a little bit more into your story, because I know that was just the beginning, and I know there's so much more that has happened since then. So take us into like what was like kind of the next steps as you're now building into your healing journey and starting to expand and saying, oh, I want to, explore more things. So where did you go from there?
Yeah, I first just want to mention something that I felt when
Yes.
you were talking about like where do we start, right?
Yes.
And for me, as I said, I did it out of almost like survival mode to start
Yes.
with because
Yes.
that's what helped it for me. But what it helped and what's the key,
Yes.
whether you're in survival mode or whether in you're like, I want to change my life, even if you're not in a tower moment, so to speak, it's like the thing is that the commitment,
Mhm.
because the commitment to do it, just like you said, it's practice. So now after all these years, I don't necessarily meditate every day
Mhm.
because it's a way of life. I'm so used to, and that meditation that you talked about,
Yes.
I can tap into that in just, and I do it before every session, before every reading. It just takes me, 30 seconds. I can just pop into it. And then I'm so used to that channel because that's what happens when you meditate regularly. You're getting used, you're rewiring everything in you. So you're getting used to being connected to that portal to
Yes.
bypass your actual mind and
Mm.
coming into, I'm a Leo, so for me it's all heart, right? Coming into your heart, sometimes it's your
Yes.
gut too, coming into your intuition and to access that portal to your soul, to the universe. And that's the thing. In the beginning, it's hard because in society, culture, I mean, most of us have grown up where, and especially now social media, as you said, the attention span is like it's supposed to happen this
Yes.
quick. And
Yes.
this is all about coming into that subtleness. And that's why it takes practice in the beginning because you have to kind of rewire. But
Yeah.
then once you're there, it doesn't have to feel like it's such a thing to
Yes.
overcome, because then the mind in the beginning, the mind always comes in and hijacks like, well, why am I doing this? I have better things to do, and here's my to-do list and blah, blah, all of these things
Yes.
I have a real life to do. But the thing is that when you then get into the flow of it, then you will be there so much quicker, so it's not hard to kind of detach your mind, or just calm it for a while. So that's why like that hump, I just wanted
Yes.
to kind of mention that for
Thank
people
you.
who are beginning of like, yes, in the beginning it is a hump, and
Yes.
usually if you want to change your life, you have to change something.
I love
So
that. Thank you.
you
Yes, thank you. Thank you
have
for
to
going
face some
into.
kind of resistance. Yeah.
Yes, I love that. And actually, you used a term that I feel like maybe a lot of people might not be familiar with. When you said tower moment, I think some people might be like, well, what do you mean by that? What does that mean? So if you don't mind sharing that before we kind of move into the
Yes.
next part. Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's kind of like you get in, and I'm in a space where I kind of only have a spiritual community and friends and all of it. So yeah, Tower Moment is just in tarot. Um, let's see, I don't think it will show up, but in tarot, there's one of the major arcana that is a tower. It's actually a card of the tower, and look, it was at the top.
Oh my goodness.
I
I
just thought
love
it
the
was at the bottom,
synchronicities.
of course. So there is one card that's the tower, and as you see, everything falls apart. So this can be like, for me, everything literally fell apart in my outer world, which helped me and forced me to face in, right? And this is the way that I believe that the universe just works. Like, when we're not listening in enough, like, we're going to get challenges. And I feel that we can all like dampen tower moments if we are on our intuitive journey, or we will always kind of feel that. And then I'm so used to what I call shadow work at this point. I'm also, for astrologers, I'm a Scorpio moon, so I like to go deep. Anyone with, prominent Scorpio placements, and it's in my 12th house. So um, I like to go deep, but so-called tower moment, it's when things are falling away, and it, like you said, it can be a ton of bricks on you, like your whole world is falling apart,
Yes.
or in this case, it's falling away to leave room for, to make you wake up so that you can tune in and leave room for something better, to be intentional where you want to go. So
Oh,
did
I
that.
love that. I love that. And, that makes so much sense. And I'm glad we talked about that because, my journey, of course, was also inspired by like huge tower moments. It was the same thing, like a ton of bricks, like everything fell apart, and I think what I realized also is, and this might resonate with other people, is, we're always getting little hints from the universe and we'll keep getting hints. And then if we're not paying attention to them, they just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then before you know it, the tower moment happens. And I
Right.
think, like I know that was my experience. So for anybody who's listening, tower moments can be so many things, anything that's like really challenging in your life. And that can look different for many different people. But that's kind of what Kristina and I are kind of sharing right now, is that, it's all of us experience it, right, to different degrees. And it's a question of like, in that moment, are you ready to sort of say, I'm ready to sort of like work through this and get through this, and whatever those steps look like. So I appreciate that we kind of touched on that, which was wonderful. So
Yeah.
coming back now to
Yep.
where we left out, if you want to share a little bit more about like where the journey has taken you.
Yeah, I have two things. So one thing that I still wanted to share
Yes.
around that time, because that's how I got really intentional with manifesting as well. And
Okay.
what prompted that was that in the middle of those 2 years, my grandma had passed, and my mom and my sister were going through treatments.
Yes.
And my boyfriend at the time of 5 years broke up with me, and it was kind of out of the blue, but you know how the universe works. The week before, my best friend had said, "Hey, in a year, because we were studying together, we have the opportunity to go to do one semester wherever. Like, our before we were going to do our thesis, we could do that semester wherever." So she's like, "I've really," she went on the hike, the Camino in Spain, and she's like, "I felt like I really want to go to Australia for that semester. Something is just calling me." And she said, like, "Do you want to come?" And I'm like, I would love to, but I've been away from my partner for 3 months earlier, and it was really hard to be away from him that
Yes.
long. So
Mm.
I'm like, I can't, and plus everything that's going on. But it was mostly that, because what was going on was just going on, and I didn't know how long it's going to last, right? So, and then a week later, he broke up with me, just kind of like
Wow.
out of the blue, so to speak. So it's like the universe, like, what? You said no? And that's when I get, and actually that was one of the darkest moments through that
Mm.
journey, except for then when they
Okay.
actually passed. But
Yes.
I remember sitting on the floor of my friend's apartment and just like staring, because my whole future, not only my
Yes.
family, who was such support in the growing
Yes.
up, like now he's gone too, like everything was disappearing from me.
Yes.
And I remember sitting there just staring, and in there, somewhere in those few weeks right there, the first initial weeks, I realized, I had the belief already that, okay, everything happens for a reason. I might not know why right now, definitely don't know why, but it happens for a reason. That was kind of what I could hold on to. And
Yes.
that's what I feel like is happening for everyone when tower moments come. It's to
Yeah.
show us that we can't hold on. If we try to hold on, that's when worse and worse and worse going to come, because we're not meant to. Something else wants to come in instead, something better. So that's when I realized that, okay, if he's not for me, then who is that, and what do I want
Mhm.
in a partner?
Mm.
And it really shifted. And then as you know, Josh Groban, he released one of his, that was kind of his breakthrough. And for whatever reason, I kept hearing this song, You Raise Me Up, everywhere in every store. I'm like, oh my God, I'm a singer. And I studied music for 3 years. I'm like, oh my God, this man's voice is just, he just spoke right to my heart. And then
Yes.
I found that, oh, he's only a year older than me. And he's very handsome. I mean, he just like, in my eyes. So like all of that, just like, it just shifted me to like, oh, but what do I want? And it shifted to in a man. Everything else was a bit of a jumble.
Yes.
Um, so I got I kind of connected to that, and
Mm.
Josh has since been that inspiration. He just sings to my heart, and it always like, what is my highest, most impossible dream? And that's what that moment, that's when I started to see that, wait, now I can manifest anything that I want. And it just gradually came in, and then the more I worked on that connection too, of like
Mm.
my highest dream in a partner, who was that and what did that feel like? I started to get an energetic connection with someone, right? And since then, the next few years from there, 3 years, I was dating some and some for a few months and whatnot, more or less intense. But I came back because during that time, I had formed such a feeling, manifestation feeling of this is who I want to be with. So
Mm.
even dating a few people, then I came back to like, wait now, but you're not this feeling. I'm not going to give up this feeling. So that's when that started happening for me of like, I know what I want and I'm not going to settle, or
Yes.
it's not so much settling. I mean, everyone is beautiful, all these men are, beautiful, but it's just like, you're not that complete match and I want the complete match. So
Yes.
that's something that I really want to bring up here because all that darkness made me just like wake up or like have that light in me somehow. And Josh helped me with that, like, oh, there is a light here. I have a future. It's just not right here, right now. So it made me be very intentional in relationship to start with. So I kind of just wanted to bring in that
Yes.
here. Yeah.
Thank you.
Because it's
Yeah.
something that I work with, and you've done my manifestation
Yes.
workshops, and just like that energy of what you want, rather than all the details and when and where and who it's going to happen, like that energy, that's what I've held strong to through since then. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I mean, I think that's so incredibly important. And, like just in terms of connecting the pieces, when you're in that place where you feel like everything has completely fallen apart. I mean, there is that place of like, you're just like, oh my God, where do I go? But at the same time, you're also like, okay, well, I'm kind of at rock bottom. So I guess there's no place to go but up. So
Right. What do I want to create? Because everything is a blank slate,
yeah, everything is
whether I
pretty
want it
much
or not.
everything
Yeah.
is pummeled to the ground. So where are we going
Right.
from here? So I think, everything that you're sharing, it kind of is also reinforcing how much, when you say a tower moment or anything that's like shattering, like for you in your life, it's very hard in that moment to see that this is an opportunity for growth. But I know there's always that spark of like, okay, this has happened. Yes, of course, you need to grieve. You need to do all of those things. It's very important. You don't want to just bypass that, right? But at the same time, it's also being like, okay, so where do I want to go from here? And truly, and Kristina, I know you will agree that it's so much about going inwards now and doing that sort of healing. And part of that is kind of everything that we're sharing and talking about. It's like as you start to like lean inwards and saying, okay, what do I need? And then also obviously looking externally because you don't have the tools yet. So you do need to look outside. And my goodness, I mean, as much as I like to say, oh my God, social media was huge for me during the
Yeah.
pandemic, right? Like
Yes.
everything I had to look for was there. Cause what? I can't have coffee with a friend. I mean, everyone's like at home, locked down, and as far as I knew, nobody was going through what I was going through that I knew of. So I didn't have any kind of support system. I was completely by myself. And so it's like, what do I do? Now, part of this whole tower moment type of journey is it is meant to be by yourself for a certain amount of time, right? It's not like
Right.
you go through an immediate, you're like, oh my God, look at all these resources and look at all of this stuff, right? Because you have to get to a little bit of like sort of your inner journey where you can be like, okay, I'm feeling a little bit stabilized. What can I start to look for? What can I do? And I feel like the universe then starts to connect you with like, okay, well, here's something. And you start to like find different things that can be like tools to start to help you in your journey. And manifestation is huge. And I so agree with you. And I think, I'll be honest with you, I think like there's so many versions of what manifestation looks like. I think it gets so confusing because people are like, well, what is that? I mean, do I just like say something out loud and then it just happens? Or, and I love what you're sharing. It's not just about like verbally saying something, it's also the energy that's connected with it. That's kind of the biggest thing. And so if you want to share a little bit more, because you're the expert in this, I'm just kind of sharing that that's such an important component of
Yeah,
like, it's not just saying something, it's like that match of really
yeah,
feeling into it and lining up with it. So if there's
yeah.
anything else you want to add to that, I know you kind of shared a little bit about it before, but yeah.
Yeah, no, how I feel that too, because for me, it is that energy. And the thing is that what I believe that because I'm so like we're all here on a soul journey, right? And what happens when you connect is that your soul will speak to you like this is your gift, this is what you're meant to do here in life. Can you like our soul and our heart, our intuition is guiding us to our unique gifts, our unique place and position in this life. And that is what you're going to hear. The more you go in and just allow that to be, then it will start clarify for you and your passions, your desires that are not matched up with society or your family or whatever. Like we all are so unique in who we are. And so tapping into that, that's what I feel is more so like, okay, what do I really enjoy and what is important for me? So it's so much that rather than and connecting the two. So it's not just like, oh, I want it from here. As you said,
Yes.
affirmations are good when you're course correcting your mind because your mind can only see so limited of what you've already experienced. So it helps to get into the energy. But what's really powerful is that when you feel that whole energy, this is me and this is my journey and this is where I'm going because it's me. This is like I'm manifesting this because I'm being guided to manifest it. So it's coming from here and not your brain. And in terms of that too, is that as you said, that there's no spiritual bypassing. So what I experienced, and I want to say a couple more things about that, but a year after they passed, my mom and sister passed within 4 months of each other, and I'll tell you some moments in there, but what was really in my then healing journey, grief journey, which
Yeah.
obviously the intensity of it took a few years. And
Yes.
I still have times, and it's been, they
Yes.
passed in 2006, but
Yes.
um, but to lighten the heaviness
Mhm.
of grief, whatever that is for you, it doesn't have to mean that someone passed away. It can be grieving, as you will hear, too, divorce, relationship, or whatever that is, or anything else, or a job, or things
Mhm.
like, a relationship is always that a mirror for us. But whatever it is that you're grieving and letting go of, the more you can let go of that, the more you free yourself up to
Yes.
come into that lightness of, okay, what am I meant to be? What is my full potential? Not just do, but be too. It's be and do all in one. So
Yeah.
that's why I feel like that manifestation, that energy to really anchor it into your soul is your knowing that this is what I love, and that's where I'm going to have that as my northern star, that as my compass of what I love, and then trusting. Everything is about trusting, right? So much easier said than done. That the universe will guide you, and it might look like, well, wait, now how am I going to get here? I'm way over here now. And the universe will guide you into that, because then it also becomes a journey of worthiness. Am I really, like, we can say so many things that, of course, I want this and this and this, but can you really hold all that? Can you really receive, all of that kind of stuff? So I don't know if that it did that.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. I mean, I think this is, and this is what I love about like the way I'm doing this podcast is like I just want to go with the flow and just really engage in these like conversations. And as we're talking, like something else pops up. Like this is such a like juicy conversation, right? Like how I want
Right.
to say, because, one of the things I wanted to add to what you're saying is, when I started my journey, I think there are a lot of people who are going to say, well, but I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what because it's just suddenly like everything is shattered and you're like, I'm literally building up, and we've been sort of like society, our parents, our families, there's been a lot of limitations around, well, you should do this and don't do this, and that's not a worthy enough thing, and that's weird, and this is so, also as you're releasing some of those things, I think for me, which was very helpful, and you're one of those people, like as I started to find people and see what their gifts were, what they were doing, it's like you get inspired, right? Because you're going to feel, you're like, oh, I want to learn that. Oh, let me just try it out. Even if it's not like what I'm going to do, is that sort of excitement. Like look for those sparks. Look for the
Yes.
sparks and follow that trail. Like I'm literally getting chills as I'm saying that, but that's what it was for me. There were so many incredible people like you who I would watch. And what inspired me is your passion. Like when I see someone doing something that lights them up, like it gets me excited, right? I was like,
Right.
oh, look at her. Look, she's such an amazing, like, look at her energy, the way she's reading. That is so cool. And then if you're inspired, then you're like, I'll take a workshop. So I remember like, I was like, well, I think one of the things I need to work on is my intuition. Like I feel very like, I don't know, like what's happening. And that was my first workshop that I did with you, where you kind of guided a lot of us through that process. So I think it's really important for people to, number one, start exploring things. And oh my goodness, again, social media, there's like so many places. And keep in mind, I know we're sort of like reaching a lot of different type of people, but know that you're always in some sense guided and supported to different things. So when you come upon something, a lot of times you might be like, oh, that's so interesting, how did I land here? Just trust it, just kind of go with it, listen a little, you don't like it, go to something else, but you're going to start to see all these different pieces and say, oh my god, that's really cool. You know what, I think I'm going to take that class with that person. You know what,
Yeah.
I'm going to take that workshop. And allow yourself to explore
Yeah.
and just stay open, because if you're truly looking for something that makes your soul sing and make you really happy, you have to do that little bit of exploration. Now some people are really lucky, maybe they've always known and suddenly now it's like, I always wanted to do this and I never had a chance, but now this, all of this has shattered. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm like, woohoo, if you're already
Yeah.
there, jump in. But if
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
not, that this is the way to do it. Explore, go find people, and see what starts to spark your joy and interest. So
Yes. I love the way you phrase that because that's exactly that. That's how I talk about it maybe in passion and desires, but that excitement, I love that word. Whatever that grabs your attention that's exciting, before your mind shuts down or shut it down or whatever, like anything is possible. And that excitement is exactly how your heart is guiding you. Just like you do, and then it becomes an inner knowing. But I love that you brought it up. Yeah. And for me too, I wanted to mention as well that because gratitude is such a big part of manifestation, obviously. But I also wanted to mention that sometimes, especially if we're in the dark part, it's hard to find the things that we are grateful for. They're always there, but the dark parts can overshadow it. And so that for me, as you know, have been also, well, what's pleasurable for you? Like finding the little pleasure in terms of like, oh, I like to do this. And it can be anything from just like, I'm just going to sit and just enjoy my cup of tea right now. And this right now, this moment is pleasure to me. And however, everything on the spectrum of pleasure, right? But finding those little small things in the day of, oh, because then you come into a more like, oh, I can be out of your mind and just being in what I like right now. And then from there, it's so much easier to get to, oh, I actually like this. Oh, I'm grateful for just having these two moments if you can get, out of your head. So that might be another in that I like to mention to most people too, because it's so much like, oh, just be grateful.
yes,
But if it's really dark, it's really hard to get into that space. And I mean, you can feel a little bit of it, but that's why I like pleasure, what you like to do. How can you give yourself that just for little moments is something that I think is important, or just in kind of another way in as well.
I
Yeah.
love that. And thank you for sharing. And I will say that you are like a prime example of like truly always jumping into joy and whatever excites you. And then you share it with all of us, which gets us excited, right? So those of us that are
Right.
like, follow her, she'll share. And that's one of the things I really enjoy is like, you're always so, um, you always share so authentically. Like you'll just be like raw and you'll just share exactly what's going on. And, for a lot of people, I think that'd be really uncomfortable, especially when someone looks at you as this like profound healer. Like, people have this impression, well, Kristina must have everything together. Like she's like this healer and whatever. And Kristina's like, well, this is what happened. And I was crying my eyes out for like, 3, 4 hours. So I love that you share that because, people always have this impression of like, what something looks like. And truly for me, I always honor like people, especially who are like, you know what, I'm truly like in the moment, this is what's happening, I'm sharing because there's something here for someone else to receive and say, wow, I'm either going through that, I didn't know how to voice it, thank you for voicing it for me. Or also on the other side showing, oh my God, look at how full out she's living, what is she up to, that makes me so excited, I want to do that too, so
Right.
I think it's so important. So
Yeah, and especially on social media and like when we meet people, just like, oh my gosh, she doesn't have like to go through all the hardships. So like, oh, that's easy for her, and then it's kind of easier to distance yourself of like,
yeah.
well, and that's why I like to share those parts too. And sometimes I, keep things personal for a while, and then when I'm ready to share, and sometimes you're like, okay, this is happening right now, and then you'll know in that moment, right? Um, like like this past year has been super super challenging in some
Yes.
areas of my life too.
Yes.
So and I know now why, because I'm finally coming out of it, but it takes a while. And also what I wanted to say there in terms of excitement and following your soul and your heart, to kind of wrap up those years, coming back to my story a little bit.
Yes.
What ended with that was that I had, with that whole Australia thing of like, oh, go to Australia and study for that, for the 6 months. So a year fast forward, my mom and my sister was really really intensely sick at the time, and or it just gone downhill, right?
Yes.
So I still had this. That whole year, it just grown stronger and stronger in me that I don't know why, but I'm meant to be in Australia for for that semester.
Mm.
And it led me up to the hardest decision, still to this day, hardest decision of my life,
Mhm.
because my heart was pulling me, just as you said, following that intuition, follow your heart,
Mm.
follow that, like, I don't know why, completely away from my rational mind,
Yeah.
completely away from my rational mind, being there for my family, being there for my other sister, like cultural, like, how can I do that? And my whole heart and body was just like, you're meant to go. And it took me, I literally cried for a month, and it was just like, how can I do this? How can I? Like, why is my heart saying one thing, and then it's like everything else is like, it's not possible, right?
Right.
So, but what happened when I eventually did choose to go was that I got so strong, and then while I was there, my mom and my sister passed, and I knew that possibility and all of that, but and I went back and forth, obviously, for that, and then back in Sweden for a month, and then Australia for a month, and all of that. But what that moment and that choice changed my life,
Mm.
because, and people can say however they want. Some people do not agree with that choice.
Yes.
I'm fine with that. I understand that. I understand that, you know, all of that. But I followed my truth.
Yes.
And because I did, from that moment, and that was in 2006, I have not um, doubted my intuition or trusting myself. When I take big decisions in life, I don't second guess myself, because I take them from here, and I don't do it until I land, because of course the mind is going to go, all over the place, but I do it from here. So when it's like rational mind comes around, it's like, nope, I made the decision from here. And that is something that I've kind of realized more this last 2 years. I feel like that I have that confidence in myself, and in my heart and my intuition, in my soul, because it has led me since then, taking many decisions that doesn't have any rational backup, and it has propelled me forward, because that's what I needed for my healing journey at the time. That's what I needed to to kind of to break free that way. And it was how I then eventually met my husband. You know, all of that, like all of that came together, but you don't see it in the moment of why. And that's why follow your heart. And the more you practice that, and that's a very extreme moment, but the more you practice that even every day of, if your intuition tells you to take another, like the back street home or whatever, do that. The more you act on your intuition, you might not understand why. You might see later that, oh, I just avoided a crash right then. Like the other day, I was like so late, and I was like, I had to still look at this, and I was so late to a meeting. I'm like, if something just kind of pulled me in, like I have to look at this on social media just for 2 more minutes. And then when I came to the intersection here, there was a 10-car crash that I just came to. It's like, it's just those things that doesn't make sense, and it goes against everything. But those little things, um, the more you say yes to your intuition and prove to yourself that I'm going to trust it, and I might never find out why I meant to do that or go that route or whatever, or I might find out, or I might find out a year from now. But the more you do that, the more you affirm for yourself that you believe in yourself regardless, and that you believe in your intuition regardless. And then we're going to get more and more messages, and the universe is like, oh, you're listening. Okay, let's send this way, this way, and this way. You know. So just wanted to mention that as well, and that decision, because that was choosing me against everything else, choosing my intuition, my heart against everything else, which anchored me, yeah, into myself and my truth.
I love it. That's so powerful, Kristina. And thank you for touching on that more because, even though I'm 2 years in my journey, I'm like, I'm working on my intuition and trusting myself and the nudges and things. And I'll be honest, for me, the experience was I didn't listen to my intuition, which is why I had the tower moment, because I was getting messages that I was then, instead of listening to my gut that was saying red flag, my mind is like, oh no, like rationalizing all these other things, right? And so it's almost sort of like, that was one of my biggest lessons. It's like, you need to just start listening to that inner guidance that you are getting. And so for me, a lot of my journey has been about that. It's like, okay, I got a nudge here. Of course, we always have free will. You can be like, I'm going to do it, or I'm not going to do it. But it's like, well, what if I do it? Like, what happens if I do it? And so, like you said, we're never going to know for sure exactly, but it's sort of like really starting to build that trust with yourself, because everything that we've been taught ever is look outside for expertise. Always
Yeah,
look outside. And I'm like, for me, I'm just like, oh my goodness, we've just been like brainwashed to do this way of being. And I think it takes your life kind of falling apart a little bit to be like, okay, that stuff is not quite working. So let's try something different. And,
right.
in that process of discovery, like you said, the more you start to utilize this sort of guidance that you're getting, it's going to bring you to many different things. And like you said, some very challenging things. Like I know for me in my journey right now, like I've had to release a lot of things that were really hard for me. Like it's really hard to like feel like you're going to be disconnected from your family, or you're not going to have those people in your life anymore. But you do have to be selfish and choose yourself first. That's part of it, and, not to say some of those things can't come back if they're meant to be later, but you have to shed some of those layers in order to release yourself so you can move forward in your journey. And I know that that's what's happened for me. I know that that's exactly what you're sharing too in your story, because can you imagine, like, there are probably 50 people who'd be like, are you crazy? How could you do that? It's so selfish. Like, you should be with your family, like everything would have told you to do the opposite of what you did, you know?
Yeah,
So sometimes it's like you make a decision, you're like, no one's going to support me, but I feel right.
yeah,
This is what feels right for me. So I appreciate you sharing that example, because a lot of people are going to encounter that or are
yeah,
encountering it.
yeah.
So
And what I want to bring in here too, when it was something that sparked it when you were talking, it was that because I work, especially the people that I work in mentorship one-on-one for months at a time, I work with people that has different kinds of childhood trauma. A lot of it is emotional abuse, but other things too. So what I wanted to mention here too is that usually that kind of breakthrough moment can trigger very, very deep-rooted fear, especially if you've gone through it as a child, to that, well, if you're not if you're doing something for yourself and not for someone else, especially if it's your
Yes.
close one, you're not, if you've experienced as a child, then you're not going to be loved. You're not going to be
Mhm.
seen. You're not right. Parents that has from their shortcomings, I don't judge anyone because everyone has their trauma, right? And
Mhm.
usually it's perpetuated and it just travels generation to generation. Um, because everyone is doing their best and everyone wants to love their children as best. But if you have, and it's not always parent, it can be a part of relationship, close one, however it showed up. It's that it can trigger, even if now as your adult it doesn't always make sense how hard a decision can be, because it actually triggers the core of, well, am I going to be loved? Am I going to be seen? And that's, as human beings, we all need to be loved. And
Yes.
yes, we can talk about like, oh, being strong in yourself and love yourself and then nothing else matters, but we're social human beings. We need to be in
Yes.
community. It's just that it can trigger that core trauma of, I don't belong anywhere. If I choose me, everything will go away. And and when you've experienced that as a child, it's really traumatic. It's just going to be inside of you until you heal that. And then if that's the case, maybe find your tribe, because who are you also trying to hold and love, all of those kind of things, to please. And I know that we want the best for our loved ones, but sometimes we have to see that, well, maybe that's the breaking point, of, okay, but I have to choose myself. I have to prioritize myself before someone else because I'm depleting myself, or my loved ones, or whatever that is, right? So I just wanted to mention that too. It's not just sometimes what's happening in the moment. It can just trigger you all the way back to survival mode as a child, and survival mode can be just emotionally. As a child, you have to have people to take care of you. You have to be loved and seen, right? So just want to mention that too, because as you know, I go deep. I like to go to the core of things.
Yes, yes. And I am
um,
so glad that you brought that up, Kristina. And just for everyone that's listening, like, this, I mean, Kristina has so many different gifts, and this is also such an important thing. Like, I know some of these terms people might not have heard of, but like inner child work, inner child healing, this is kind of what Kristina's talking about, like really getting to the core of some of these deep things that are sort of so ingrained and instilled. It's almost like automatic behavior, but not knowing where it comes from, and then
yeah,
actually having to do that work. So I would definitely say for all of you that are listening, and obviously, when this gets posted everywhere, we'll have all the links for Kristina's website and all the things that she offers. Definitely take a look. I mean, this is something that she goes deep into, and she has so much expertise to help you with if that's something that you want to navigate through. So, but oh my goodness, you and I could like just keep talking, and
I know.
there's like so many things. I'm like, oh my God, I feel like we're gonna have to do like a part two for this
Yes.
session.
Do you have more that you, because there's something else that I want to, for the last 2 years that I've gone through, that I want to share with, but you
Yes,
say like if
please.
you have structure or however.
No, no. Like I said, this
Yeah.
is what I love too. It's like, listen, this is my podcast. We can go as long as we want. And
Right.
so I would love for you to share everything that you want to share. So it was just like, please go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, because I also want to show the opportunity of what I've been through the last 2 years that you've witnessed so much of,
Yes.
pretty much
Yes.
all of. For one, you mentioned it at some point of like what led me to start doing this kind of coaching,
Yeah.
intuitive coaching and inner childhood coaching, and I knew when as I said, I studied health education. I knew then that I wanted to work with people, on a spiritual level.
Mm.
And then when this happened, it was right, at New Year's, 2019, 2020. Um, I just felt, again, my whole body was just like, okay, it's time. It's time to do this. And I was married there. Then I'd been, together with my then husband for 12 years, and I have a little one. She's 5 now. So, but at that point, I was like, okay, it's time. I'd had my own business, sewing business, for about 8 years at that time, or 7, 8 years. And again, it's like my guides, my heart was just like, it's time. So again, I didn't know like what am I supposed to do? I still don't know how this looks like. So again, kind of coming back to that of, well, when I don't know how things look like, I go with them. So every single evening, I'd kind of veered off from it a little bit. Every single evening after my little one had gone to bed, I was like, it doesn't matter if I don't sleep as much. This is my commitment to myself. So I started doing cards every evening. I was channeling. I've channeled my mom since she passed. So I did a lot of automatic writing and channeling her and channeling, to my higher self, just having this conversation, just putting myself in that space of not only looking for answers of what am I meant to do, what am I meant to do, but again, just providing what is here right now. What's the message right today? It's not about always about, okay, how do I move on this? It's just being, because it's so much.
Yes.
That's a part of like disconnecting the mind, right? Or just like resting the mind of what's there when we're not operating from our mind. And it's just being too. So
Mhm.
just allowing that space more and more to just be, and then eventually things started to bubble up. And I also like synchronicities, and finding people social media. And then yes, we went to a shutdown, and so I lost my other business like that, right? But the week before,
Yes.
I had just found my then coach just through social media. Like this is like, oh, I just resonate with her. Eventually, I'm like, okay, because I knew I needed some guidance of how this. But first, for a few months, I was just like, okay, I'm just going to commit to just sit in the space, sit in the quietness, and journal and doing all those things. So I wanted to kind of mention that too, like when you don't know and you don't hear it yet, just be in it, be in it, be in it. Um, and then by choice, then it's also like I jump into things. That's how I jump into things, and then I figure it out. And that's what I've learned because I follow my heart.
Mhm.
And for some people, also depends on your placement, like who you are as a person. For some people, it's harder to just jump in without having more structure. I
Yes.
can just jump in and then go for it. And for other people, that's more of a it's harder to do. But I've also learned to just face the fear of
Yeah.
it because I believe in my heart so much and believe in myself so much. Um, so since then, I started doing this, reading for people, doing coaching, and seeing like as you've seen, I've just evolved through this too. Like I didn't even start reading. Like the first workshop that I think you were in, I didn't think I channeled. Like it was all more mind. And then I realized that, oh wait, now of course I have to channel for people in sessions. And then like that turned into then like, okay, what are the people that most come to me about? Because again, like it just the universe just synchronized us together, right? We're meant to connect with a certain people at a certain time. So I started seeing patterns in the people that came to me that very much correlated to my expertise just from my experience more so than my like I have so many tools too, but it would all just fit into that, right? So with that, I can then, form my programs and go from there. And then I went through divorce and I moved. It's only 30 minutes, but I moved to a new city. I've changed my friends. Like I've changed my whole life, and because what I didn't quite realize at the time, but I still, and then it became clear to me was that, as I said, I choose to live this life in my full potential, and it's a journey. It still is a journey. I'm not there yet, but I have the courage to believe in myself that I can have everything that I desire, that my heart, that just as you said, lights me up, excites me. But it takes that letting go first until the new can come in. And that's where that trust in like, okay, I'm being told to let go of that. And also being really honest. You have to be really honest with yourself. Where is this relationship, or where are these, not only partnership, um but friendship, work, colleagues, also being around like-minded people. As I said, I mentioned at some point, like at this point, I only hang out with and spend time with, and even on social media, things that just lifts me up and people that lifts me up, people that I can have these kind of conversations with. I'm not saying this is for everyone, but I'm choosing me. This is what lights me up. And I am so much more, um, I don't know, intentional with my time that I just want to do things that make me feel good or make me feel that this has a purpose. I can sure be social and chit chat, but if it doesn't go deep, I like to go deep. I want to know, who are you? What have you been through? What are you feeling right now? I don't really care so much about whatever the weather and what's happening. And some people do, like in terms of politics and stuff, like if you that's your activist, then that's amazing. And yes, I have that too, whatever. I have a eco-friendly business in terms of my sewing stuff. And so yes, I have that too, but I like to do this one-on-one deep. So I've chosen to be in an environment and with people that supports that. So yes, it's been a lot of small tower moments and hard times
Yes.
that I've had to go through and heal. Divorce for one, even though it wasn't anything like new for us. It was a conscious uncoupling in a sense, but it's still a lot to heal after 12 years of relationship, right? And grief through that too, and grief what we didn't make happen, all of these things. And then up leveling and having, again, I have my dreams up here. I have my goals up here, both for a partner and for my business. And this last year has been a huge lesson in worthiness. As I said, like it's easy to say that, oh, this is what I want, I want, I want. And then the universe was like, well, so then here, we'll hold up this mirror. Can you accept it? And it's like, oh, I'll work on that. And it has literally taken me through some of my darkest moments because the universe is like, okay, well, can you face your fears? Can you face your fears in this and still trust? And that's in my, as you know, I'm studying really hardly right now gene keys, because that it's just been so, astrology is amazing for me too, and I've studied that for 2.5 years now. But gene keys is just like gets to the core, and me, like, okay, then I can really hone in, and then I can put all my tools in there, and it's in my purpose, and it's in my purpose as fulfillment, as well as in my purpose of work and income. I have the same there, and it says you have to face the darkest fears within you, which we kind of all have to do, but I have that as a purpose because that's what I also teach, right? So I have to do it myself. I have to walk my talk and go really, really dark and deep, because that's how I learn. And how I've learned through that is trust. When everything is like, okay, I don't see what's in, like how the solution will come, I'm just going to trust that the universe is going to provide that solution for me from inside of me, and from just how magic works in this world. So I feel like that's most people's journey, even though it can come in different ways. But the trust part, trusting in yourself, trusting in that we're always guided and connected, and then that can come in very unique ways for everyone, right? But that's that trust that has pulled me through this, of like, again, this is where I'm going for. And then the universe will give you the lessons and amazing experience too. Like the last 2.5 years, the people that I've met, the best friends, like it's just, the connections are just like, whoa, we meet, and then it's just like, oh, we've known each other for lifetimes. And it's like, how amazing is it that we can just find those connections so quick and so easy. And it just gets to be more and more of that as the more you are on this path. So I kind of wanted to bring all of this up to, and that's just compressing 2.5 years. You've seen the transformation in
Yes.
a very short amount of time. But this has been, it can be looked at as tower moments, but this has been a change of life, of choice.
Yes.
I chose this, and yes, I'm going through the healing journey of it, and all the things that has to align for me to do it. But I chose it because I believe that we can have everything that we want in this life, and we deserve everything that we want, and to be happy and fulfilled in every single way, that we don't have to settle or sacrifice, or however that is. Again, nothing against anyone. It's just that allowing ourselves to evolve, allowing ourselves to change our dreams too. It's a big one too. So, and I know, because I don't know if it's society. Some people are just like, well, if you're 30, like, oh, I'm too old. Like I should have it together. I just turned 40 a couple months ago, and it's like, you don't have to. And I work with people that are 55. It's you never have to settle. You have a whole life, even if you're 80 and you choose to change your life to live your last years in abundance and fulfillment and amazingness. It's never too late, because you're worthy doing that journey, and you're worthy having it. So I was just wanting to bring in some empowerment for some people that feel like, how is this possible? How can I change
Yes.
what I want to change? Or people that have been, and as I come across a lot, have been in relationship after relationship, a situation, it just brings back the same lesson all the time. It's like how, like they feel like this is ingrained in me. This is who I am. And how can I ever get away from it? And that's where I like to take you to the core of, well, why is this pattern coming in? Because it always has a core, right? But nothing is ever too late. And you can live your fullest dreams. You just have to go within and do the work.
Yes, yes, yes. I love that, Kristina. Thank you. I know you had to compress all of that in a very short period of time, but anybody who's listening or who's going to be listening to this, I mean, you can see that, it's a journey. It's a constant journey, but I almost feel like it's how I always hear it's like sort of on the layers of the onion keep getting peeled, right? It's like, and sometimes honestly, and Kristina, you would agree, like you would think that you've like worked on something, you're like, okay, I figured that, I've cleared that up, I'm ready to move on, and then it sort of comes back again and you're like, wait a minute, I thought I already worked on this or cleared this, and then it shows up, but it shows you a different angle, right? So
Yep.
it's so like multi-layered, but I think for me, everything in what you're sharing, it really kind of still comes down to building that trust with yourself and self-love and just knowing that you're worthy. Because I mean, I think all of us struggle with that. It doesn't matter where we are. Like, it's just a thing. Like, I have this podcast, but I'm also like, I get nervous and I'm like, oh, I don't know, like how it's going to go, what's going to happen. But I'm just trusting and saying, this feels right. It brings me joy. I have things that I would want to share from my journey, from people that I'm connected to, for them to share. Because at the end of the day, I feel like the reason also why we go through these journeys is because once you've lived through it, through that experience, now you can share and say, you know what, if anybody can get anything out of listening to this and that ray of hope or that sort of affirmation that says, you know what, I'm so worth it. Like I can start today.
Yeah.
I can start today and just get moving. And if it's like the smallest thing, like you said, if that means that I'm just going to make a cup of coffee for myself and just sit and look at the sky, great, do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I
Yep.
think it kind of, if you bring it back to what we're talking about, and I think also to tie it into what you were saying is, this is kind of your gift, Kristina. Like you have all these things that you've gone through, because now you can kind of get to that place where anybody that you work with, you just go straight to the core and say, let's just start with those things. And so I think that's so powerful, because we don't have the tools when we're doing this journey. We have to look for that help. So don't be afraid to ask for help or reach out to somebody. And of course, I think it's very important that you choose who is going to help you. And it's not about the most popular person or the person that has the most likes. It's about, do you resonate with that person's energy, what they're saying? Like, wow, this person has gone through that journey. I feel that kind of pull in my heart that says, yes, this is the right person for me. So I do think that that's important as well, is like really, who you feel you're going to be drawn to and feel comfortable with, and go with that person. And to just trust, that everything is really happening for you. I know that's so hard for people to, because a lot of times they're just like, oh my God, why is this happening to me? And in that moment, it does feel like whatever that emotion is that's connected to that, whether you feel hopeless or whatever. But at the end of the day, what Kristina and I are sharing on this is to say there's always hope, and there's so much magic and potential in every single one of us. And we just have to believe and be open. And yes, you do have to do a little bit of work. It's not just magic from outside. So
Yep.
you do
It's
have
not just affirmations and then you feel your life. And
yes, you
no,
have to
yeah.
make that investment in yourself. And when you
Commitment to
invest,
yourself.
yeah, and your commitment to yourself. And honestly, that is what builds that sort of self-confidence and, your trust in yourself. And it's just one step at a time. And the more you do it, as Kristina, you were sharing, it's like the more you do it, the more the universe keeps supporting you and saying, okay, look at you taking all these steps and making the effort. 100% we're going to support you and match you and keep like helping you move forward. So I just love all of the stuff that we've been sharing.
Yeah. And also with that, like the more you, as I said, act on your intuition and pay attention to it, the more signs you will see every day, like multiple times a day, so that you can get that confirmation to do the things or take the leaps or do the stretches or go within and facing your fear, all of that. you will just see how supported you are, and more and more and more as well. And also, I want to mention here, just because I end up working with so many people that have been alone in their belief, or in their, and very strong people that are like, well, I've had to do everything myself, right? And that's even harder than to stretch that and to actually work with someone, or to reach out for help, whether that is a coach or a therapist or healing, or even friends, or even loved ones, of like, hey, can you just help me with this? And that's that whole part of like working on speaking your truth and worthiness as well. And it's always going to be a stretch when you, as I said at some point too, like when you want to change something, you have to step out of your comfort zone. So whether that is a stretch in prioritizing your time for yourself, or prioritizing where you're putting your energy in your mind, prioritizing where you're putting money, anything to get over the hump of to the next part is always going to be a stretch, because that's what's showing you that you're stepping out of your comfort zone, because your comfort zone is just going to keep, and then the same thing is going to happen. So it's always that stretch. But I want to just say that to everyone that is listening, that has that like, oh, I can do everything myself. And I know you can. You're amazing. And you get to be supported. Yeah.
That is
And
so
that's,
important. Yes.
yeah, so important, holding that trust. And you've known that from being like in my smaller groups, especially when I do my programs or my workshops, like the intimate space, everyone is meant to be there together, and it requires trust. And that's why doing it in groups and in smaller groups, also, it's not just the journey that you're doing with the teachings and whatnot, but doing it in a group is that you're kind of rewiring yourself of, oh, there's people I can trust, and there's people that are like-minded, and I can open myself and be vulnerable, and I'm not exploited or walked over. I'm seen. And that's why just being in groups is healing as well, especially if you have had that it hasn't been, or it hasn't been safe to be you, or boundaries walked over and all of that. That itself is just, it's just healing as well. Yeah. So just wanted to mention that.
Yes, yes. I think that's so important. And I know for me, because so much of my journey initially was solo, and I know it was meant to be that way. But then when I was ready, even if it was just online, like I started to find, small little groups of people who are like going through something similar. And it just gives you that comfort and knowing that you're not alone and that you don't have to be alone. And there were times when I couldn't find enough. So I just created my own group. I said, well, I'm just going to find a few people. And believe it or not, like that little group has turned into us like sharing so much like healing and listening and support. We're all going on a trip together to Arizona. Like
Oh,
these are my
that's
soul
so
sisters. Like I'm
amazing.
getting chills as I'm
Yeah.
saying that. It's like, can you imagine that that's possible? People I have never met. I'm going to meet them for the first time. And,
Yes.
you
Oh
know,
my God, that's amazing.
isn't it? And it's like the bond is so strong, but it's like, there's so many things that are available to us now. And you do have to take a little leap. You have to take a little jump. And look, let's be honest, Kristina, like we know that not everything is always going to be like you might be connected to someone today. And then maybe, a few weeks later, you're like, something doesn't feel right. Something is not feeling right. And, it's okay. Like, you might have to release it or say that this is not right for me at the moment. So all of these things are going to come up. It's not that it's just going to be like the smooth ride, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's going to be bumps, but that's okay, because as you are strengthening your own guidance and your tools and your trust, the choices that you make are going to come from a different place than when you're starting, where you're sort of like, well, I don't know. I mean, I feel obligation. I feel this, I feel that. Now you're like, you know what? This feels right to me. I don't need to explain anything to anybody. I don't need to hurt anybody. I don't need to do anything negative. I can still love them, but I don't need to be part of that equation, you know?
Yeah.
So the way
Yeah.
that you
And
make your choices and decisions are slightly different. So,
yeah. And that awareness, that's awareness. Awareness gives us a choice. And that's why as you know, that's why like awareness is everything. Start being aware of why are you reacting? Why are you feeling? Not to judge it, just to be aware of it. And as you said too, is when you said that, like, oh, well, you might, connect with someone, and then your awareness is like, well, is this uh, my old pattern showing up, or is it a new? So that you can have the choice of like, well, because universe kind of have a way of, some people say testing, but it's not so much testing, but it's just like it's an opportunity for
yes.
you to reflect to yourself that well, I've changed and I'm choosing not. So that's also like it gives you opportunities to show for yourself that you're very intentional with what you're choosing. And yes, as you said, like daring to go on that journey and change yourself, allow giving yourself permission to change it as you go too. I love that you brought that up. Yeah. And I
Love
love that you get to see all of them. I know how that is because I have so like most of my clients are spread out, and it's just now coming into this new community that I have more too, but my close ones are far, far, far away.
it.
So
Yes.
yes, I know the feeling, and I had like that in-person retreat for some of my clients that I
Yes.
got to meet for the first time in March, and it was like, oh my gosh, we know each other to the soul, and now we get to hug each other and see each
Oh,
other. Oh, I'm so
yes.
happy for you.
Thank
Yes.
you. Yeah, I just feel that it's just going to be so magical and so powerful. And but that's what's possible, like just how you're sharing. It's like, look what's possible. It's like, I think it's also important that all of us have gone through a lot during the pandemic, a lot, but
Yes.
there's so many silver linings. If we choose to look and see them, there's so much magic that has happened for so many of us. So for me personally, regardless of what happened, the pandemic was for me one of the most beautiful times. As much as it was super challenging to go through my journey, like now when I sit where I'm sitting and I can look back, I'm like, thank you, universe. Thank you for my team for, having things happen the way that they did so that I could
Yeah.
sit here right now being in a place where, of course, I have lots of healing still left to do, but it's brought me to a place where I'm like, you know what? Wow, I've navigated enough where I can now offer something to people who might be starting their journey or might be in the middle part of their journey. And to bring all these amazing people like you who have never met in person, like it's only been online. But, for me, it's like you've been so valuable on my journey, right? It's like there's so much that you have offered and contributed to me, and I know that that's super meaningful for me, and so
And
now
for
it's
me.
like, thank you. And it's like, this is how we can offer something. I mean, that's the whole point of this podcast is, it's about healing journeys and having people be in a place where it's like, wow, there is so much out there that's
Yes.
so wonderful that I can explore, and that you're just so beautiful and amazing, and we're just waiting for each one of you to see it.
Yeah, yes, exactly. That's what I say, like to people. I'm here to hold up a mirror for how amazing and beautiful you are. If I can do any of that, that's my purpose, so that you can see your own light.
Yes.
And yeah, that's just
Yes.
amazing. And as you said too, I like that in terms of just being grateful for all those things. Like, of course, I wouldn't wish on anyone going through what I originally went through and losing my family, who I was so, so, so close with,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't be the person, the strength that I have today. I
Yes.
wouldn't, I wouldn't.
Yes.
And I don't, I don't regret that. I don't regret everything has its time too. My marriage, like everything has so much beauty in it. And it's just about allowing ourselves to evolve and not get stuck in the resentment or grief about it, allowing your grief to take up as much space as it needs to. But
Yes.
in the end, as you said, like, wow, how grateful you are and how far you've come because of these things that happen. And I'm the same. I couldn't be more grateful. Yeah,
I
for
love
life.
it. I love
Yeah.
it. Oh my goodness. This conversation has taken us everywhere. And I'm sure
Yes.
we've gone like way into like, I don't even know what timing, but it doesn't even matter. Like
Yeah.
such beautiful, amazing, wonderful conversation. So I know that people are going to get so much out of this. And, like I shared before, like I'm super excited. People are going to get a chance to connect with you directly after this as well. But as we're kind of getting ready to wrap up, I did want to ask you if there's anything you would like to maybe showcase for us, maybe a
Oh,
card
I forgot
reading
about
or a
that part. Yes.
channeling or anything that you feel inspired so people can sort of like watch you in
Right, right, right.
action.
Right, right, right. I forgot about that. We were going to get to that part. You did tell me about it. I'm like, oh, well, it's good. Well, so first with that, because I can do some cards now, and we can just do like people can tune in. I'll guide you through a little short thing, but we'll make it a little bit shorter because I know we've talked for so
Yes.
long. Because I also during the fall I am going to do so. Okay, sorry that I'm talking in half sentences. I'm gonna try to make it a full sentence. Um, so one thing that I do is to to go in and I do cards as a divination for tuning into where you're at or a message that you need at the moment. Sometimes I do this with just straight channeling as well. And as I said, I look at charts and all of these, I have all these different tools, right? To then go to the core of what are we working on here as the healing part. And I do healing, sending healing. I don't do Reiki for, like Reiki is so popular. A lot of people do that. I do chakra, distant chakra healing instead. But so let's do a little quick for everyone that's listening or watching. Let's see, I'm going to do 3 cards and just kind of for the message of right now, wherever you are, whenever you listen to this, whenever this airs, or if you happen to listen to it later, you can pick card 1, 2, or 3. So what I recommend everyone to do is just to take a deep breath, coming into your heart, grounding in with your feet. And if you do have a specific question or specific area that you want to message in, you can tune into that. Otherwise, you can just say, what is here for my highest good and growth today? And tune into intuitively, do you feel card 1, card 2, or card 3? Okay. So I'm going to turn card 1 to start with. And so with this, I feel like you're probably going through a lot of heavy stuff or feel like you have a lot of weight on your shoulder. What's coming through here too, so for some people this will resonate more than others, is that are you carrying things and energies that is actually not yours to carry? And this is something that I talk about a lot. Are you taking responsibility for someone else's healing journey, someone else's energy to keep them comfortable to help them more than what you're taking for yourself? And in that case, you take the load on your shoulders, even though it's actually not your energy. And also, if we're open energetically, we have to learn our boundaries there, right? So it's just something that I'm feeling that you might be carrying a lot of things. Just pay attention to if it's actually your stuff you're carrying or not. It might be that it is you and you're going through, as I said, if many people listen to this, it's going to come through it differently. It might be too that you're going through a lot right now. And if that's the case, see if you can, again, as we talked about here, do something for yourself. Choose yourself. You probably need rest. And also, like, even going outside, like stopping your to-do list, stopping your work, allow yourself to give yourself to fill your cup, and taking a moment just outside, just to have energetic space from your own mind too, just to create a little bit more of breathing room in your life. That's all that I'm feeling for that card. Okay, if you chose card number 2, this is more of a mental card, feeling either you might face a physical like decision as well, but it has you go 2 different ways mentally. So you might be torn between a decision, or you might be torn between people, or you might be torn between, as we've talked about, your own truth versus helping or holding someone else's, or even someone else's truth. It's not about helping them. Sometimes it's just, as we said, family, society, cultural, religion, conditioning, right? And I kind of feel that you've gone into your head about it with this card. So tapping in then to your heart, I feel like this is a little bit different energies in terms of this is also obviously to get into your heart and take some time for yourself. But I feel like you probably, mindfulness meditation would be really good for you who are listening to that and chose number 2. Even if it's like, it could be just one decision, just again go into your heart and see what is your heart or gut telling you to do. But this is also like a practice to get out of your head. So, and I do a lot of different kinds of meditations, guided, and I've done really intense courses in just mindfulness too, of just observing your mind, knowing that you're not your mind. It's a beautiful tool that we all have, but are you getting too much identified with it? What would be beneficial for you to surrender here, so that you can get out of worry and anything that can spiral into worry and anxiety and all of that. But that's just something, a message for card number 2. Let me feel if I feel into something else here. Again, I want, for this one too, I want you to know that you're worthy, okay? You're worthy. Choosing you, if that's whatever, how this choice shows up, or if it's just kind of a subconscious, I'm going to commit more to yourself, know that you're worthy that, okay? Losing some extra love on everyone that's listening, choosing any card, but just to kind of help you get in here. Okay, if you chose card number 3, wow, I wonder if there's a lot of people listening, definitely going through it. It's a lot of mental heaviness. So card number 3, let's see how I frame this in difference, because it's kind of similar. Some of you didn't know what to choose from. A little bit similar to card number 2, but let me angle this a little bit differently. See here. So this is more probably about a commitment to yourself. Seeing where you have made, it might be a contract, it might be actually with someone else, a contract with someone that might be friendship, lover, partner, someone close to you that is simply not your relationship, or not elevating each other anymore. It's not serving you anymore. You might be in a place where it's really looking over and reevaluating your commitment, or contracts rather, that you have. And this, I'm not saying it's a contract. For some of you it might be in terms of work and whatnot, but it's like the contracts that we make with each other when we, when we come together. Is it really serving you? And what part is it serving you? Have you changed? Is it time to choose something that serves you better, so that you can come into a space and to attract the people that that you can be uplifted with, that you do this simultaneously, rather than carrying one part, or that is just like you might just have grown apart. So allowing this to happen, and instead choosing choosing yourself, and choosing to see, okay, where am I? What would I want instead? Like we talked about the whole manifestation, what would serve me better? And sometimes this is also, it shows up as a relationship outside, but really what it mirrors is always what's going on within us. So what is the contract that you have with yourself there, in terms of, are you not, are you staying in situations or relationships or whatever that is not serving you, or that is making you maybe play small, and that doesn't allow you to shine? And it might be that you are okay with that, but this is a reevaluation of what are you settling into? What is not serving you? What do you need to break in order to move on? All right. Those are the 3 cards. Maybe those were some messages for people that really needed to hear them in the moment. They're, yeah, interesting. So we'll see how people, I was expecting more different, and they're kind of like similar in a way, but
Yes.
maybe because we've talked about tower moments and all that, maybe we've talked, and none
Yes.
of this is the tower. It's for people that are into tarot. The first one was the 10 of Wands. Second one is the 2 of Swords. Last one is the Devil. So maybe we do have people that are working through a lot of things right now that are listening, and which would be beautiful, because you're offering so many beautiful tools and people and yourself to heal and to move through hard times. So maybe that's why it's coming up. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I think everything is always in divine timing. So I feel like when
Yes.
this episode does come out, and the people that are drawn and are going to be listening to this, I almost feel like what you were saying was really funny when you said, you're like, I wonder if people are picking more than one, because there's a lot of similarity in the messages. So my people are
Yeah.
like, oh, I don't know what to pick. I'll just pick all of them,
Yeah.
so who knows what people were doing, but it's amazing. I think also what I love is that, when I get to see you like in action, right? And I mean, if you think about it, I mean, you just offered people like a mini coaching session, truly.
Yes.
So
Yes.
It's like, here you got a little sample of like what Kristina does and how she does it. And just in a span of like 2 or 3 minutes, there's all this amazing stuff that you can actually like work on. Like after listening to this, it's like,
Right.
you've got something to work with. So I love that so much. And thank you so much for sharing that with us. And this has just been such a beautiful conversation. I mean, we've talked about so many things, and I know that whoever ends up listening to this when it comes out or like in the future, it's just packed with so much amazing information. And I can't wait for people to connect with you and get to know you more and take your classes, your workshops, everything that you do. So I'm just so honored that you said yes and that you are part of my journey, and just so much gratitude.
Yes, and thank you, Vinita, for spreading this and giving this opportunity for so many people to tune into and to shine your light and just wanting to spread. You're just doing this to just, spread this love and this, yeah, everything that you're about. And you have a heart of gold. And it's such an honor to be here and to have you ask me if I wanted to come on. And also just for everything that you've done these last 2 years, and you've been a part of my workshops, and just like you're someone who I just see like you just also like we recognize that in each other. We just don't stop. It's like, okay, let's face it. Let's go into this. Let's go like, okay, as you just said, like you will probably, take one of these cards and just like, okay, now I'm gonna do this whole ritual for myself if I know you're right, right? Whenever something is sparked within you, I'm like, okay, you're getting to the core of that. And that's so inspiring. And I recognize myself in that too, to be inspired in that of just like, okay, let's do it. Let's do it sooner rather than later. And I'm all for integration, and we can't just push everything. But at the same time, if we commit to ourselves and do it, the sooner we can get to a space where we don't have to carry so much waste. So you're such an inspiration,
Thank
I'm sure for the
you.
people around you too. I just get you in little glimpses, but it's so beautiful to see your journey through this too. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. It's been so amazing, and I can't wait for all of you to connect. All of Kristina's information will be in all of the bio sections of everywhere this gets posted. So
All
I'm
right.
really excited. And thank you again, Kristina. I love
Thank
you.
you. I love you too. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.